What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back for another Game of Thrones Season 8 Plot Leak video. Today I will be reading Season 8 Episode 5, and instead of wasting any time, let's just get right into it. The opening scene begins with Melisandre, Kinvara, and Varys traveling by land. They are leading an enormous party of over 25,000 soldiers. Melisandre and Kinvara were able to bring 1,000 soldiers of their own, along with several thousand followers of R'hllor. They are followed by Theon, Yara, and the commander of the Golden Company. Behind them are several thousand Ironborn men, plus 20,000 soldiers from the Golden Company. They were able to get enough dragonglass to fill a wagon, but there is not enough to arm them all. Melisandre and Kinvara finally find the location where they plan on setting up camp while they wait for Jon, Daenerys, and the others to arrive. Some of the followers of R'hllor begin to make several massive bonfires alongside the river. Melisandre and Kinvara begin chanting different prayers to the fires and everyone who watches. They talk about the long night and the one who will bring the dawn. They talk about the Great Other and the Lord of Light, and they finish by saying the night is dark and full of terrors, but tonight those terrors will be extinguished. Varys is very unsettled by Melisandre and Kinvara. As the day grows dark, the rubies on their throats continue to glow brighter. After all the prayers and the chanting dies down, Kinvara walks over to speak with Varys. Kinvara asks Varys if he was looking into the flames as they said their prayers. She says, "Would you like me to show you the answers that the Lord of Light has given us?" Varys can barely make eye contact with Kinvara. Kinvara leans in close to Varys, and she begins to whisper. She says, "There will be a great battle here tonight, and we all have our own part to play. Almost every single person you see standing here will die tonight. We all must make our own sacrifices. I will die tonight. Melisandre will die tonight. And you, Varys, will die tonight. The Lord of Light has given us protection, but now we must protect him." The next scene is in King's Landing. There are several people gathered inside a big hall. Qyburn and Euron are standing at the top of the steps on a large platform. After a few moments, Cersei walks in with her escort, the Mountain. Cersei is wearing a black gown with golden trim. On the back of the gown, there is a lion and a kraken stitched into it. Next to Euron is a pillow, with two brand new crowns displaying the lion and the kraken on them, made of solid gold. Now that Cersei has given up any shred of face she might have had, she now has her hand to the king, Qyburn, marry her and Euron. Afterwards, Euron places the new crown on Cersei's head, and Cersei places a new crown on Euron's head, making him her king. There is no feast, no music, or bedding ceremony since Cersei is still recovering from the miscarriage. Instead, they go outside to check up on all of King's Landing's defenses. All of the Lannister soldiers are now staying inside of their walls. More pitch and wildfire is being brought up and placed near each gate that enters the city. More barrels filled with steel arrows are being placed beside each ballista. There are now over a dozen ballistas aiming at the sky. Qyburn walks up to Euron and Cersei, and he tells them the final phase is complete. In the next scene, Jon and Daenerys are flying further south on Drogon and Rhaegal. Before they left White Harbor, Bran said they must go to the Trident, but he hasn't said exactly where they should land. That's until they spot a massive force making camp. They can also see several large fires burning into the night sky. When they approach the camp, Bran signals to Jon that this is the place. This is where they must land. After they land the dragons, Daenerys is first greeted by Varys, who is accompanied by the commander of the Golden Company. Varys introduces the commander to Daenerys and Jon, and they can't believe that Varys was able to pull this off. They assumed Varys had fled the north to protect his own ass. This couldn't have came at a better time, because the only people to make it out of Winterfell alive are the ones who landed on the dragons. Theon also tells Jon and Daenerys that he has most of Euron's fleet, along with several thousand men of the Ironborn ready to swear fealty and help them defeat the army of the dead. Daenerys gives Yara a hug, and she tells her that she's sorry for what has happened to her, and she swears that once they finish the Night King, they will kill Cersei Lannister and Euron Greyjoy next. Varys tells Jon and Daenerys about Melisandre and Kinvara being here, with thousands of followers of R'hllor, and he says they made him come with them, or else he would have went north. He also tells them what Kinvara said about almost everyone dying here tonight, and Jon doesn't like what he is hearing, especially since he found out Melisandre was burning people alive, including Princess Shireen. Jon tells Daenerys that he needs to go speak with Melisandre at once. He wants to keep her and Davos away from each other until he can figure everything out. Jon doesn't want a war to break out and men die before the Night King arrives. Jon walks over to the fires, and Melisandre and Kinvara are surrounded by several soldiers all dressed in red. Jon notices the ruby in Melisandre's necklace is glowing brighter than he's ever seen it before. When Melisandre sees Jon, she decides to approach him before he can say anything in front of the others. Jon says, "What are you doing here? I told you to," but Melisandre cuts him off. Melisandre says, "I know what you told me, but you need me now more than ever. Darkness will be upon us soon, and I told you I could help you defeat the Night King. That time has come. There is no more running from this. We will all dance amongst the fires tonight." Melisandre says, "There will be a great sacrifice here tonight, Jon Snow. I have seen it in the flames, and it must be done." She also says, "Do you know what the Night King wants? Do you know why he is coming here tonight?" The fires behind Melisandre begin to burn hotter and higher. The ruby on her neck begins to shine even brighter, and she says, "The Night King is coming for his replacement. The one who was chosen is amongst us now, and he will not stop until he gets what he has came for." Melisandre begins to raise her voice. "We must give his replacement to the fire, Jon Snow. The Great Other is here, and we must put an end to all the terrors in the darkness." Melisandre's voice begins to get so loud that it draws the attention of everyone in the camp. People begin to gather around Jon and Melisandre. She continues to say, "We must give him to the fire, Jon Snow. We must make this great sacrifice." Then everyone from Jon's party is watching, including Arya, Gendry, and Davos. The tension is beginning to rise throughout the crowd. The fires continue to get brighter and hotter, and her ruby is getting so bright that some people in the crowd have to turn their eyes away from it. Davos tells Jon that Melisandre shouldn't be here. She is evil, along with everyone that is chanting along with her. All of a sudden, Melisandre stops speaking, and the chanting stops. The 25,000 people gathered near the fires are completely silent. Melisandre has noticed something in the crowd of people, but no one is quite sure who she is looking at. That's until Melisandre sticks out her hand, and she points. Melisandre is pointing at Gilly and Little Sam, and when Davos realizes what she is insinuating, he pulls Arya's dagger right off of her hip, and he lunges for Melisandre. Jon struggles to hold him back as Davos begins to scream. He says Melisandre has already burned one little girl alive. He will not sit by and watch her burn someone else's child. Melisandre says, "It is the only way. You must bring me that child. The Lord of Light has shown me a great sacrifice in the flames, and I am his instrument." Arya Stark then pulls out Needle. She is prepared to kill Melisandre herself. Gendry also has his warhammer in hand. They are not going to allow Melisandre to get her hands on Little Sam. Then, Bran Stark moves himself closer to the fire, and Bran finally speaks, and he says, "Melisandre is right. There will be a great sacrifice here tonight. I have also seen that child surrounded by fires in my visions." Bran then looks to Gilly and says, "Your son was meant as an offering to the Night King. He was going to be the final sacrifice." Bran moves closer to Gilly, and he tells her he has seen all of this in his visions. He tells her that her son is more special than she knows. Craster's sons were offerings to the Night King. They became the Night King's personal King's Guard, but Little Sam was meant to be more than that. Little Sam was going to be the 100th offering, and he was going to become the next Night King. The Night King needs newborns as his instruments, and they all need to come from a special bloodline. Gilly's father and son has the blood of the dragon. Craster's father wasn't just an ordinary man of the Night's Watch. He had the blood of the Targaryens. Bran then turns to Melisandre and Jon, and he says, "Melisandre said there would be a great sacrifice here tonight. She is right. I have seen that in my visions, Jon, but it won't be her son. Melisandre, you will be that great sacrifice. You are the lady in red that I have seen on the battlefield." As Bran is saying this, clouds start to move in above them. Jon notices and knows what this means. The Night King is bringing the storm. Jon yells for everyone to arm themselves. Bran says, "Jon, I have told you there is power in you that you must embrace. I need you to trust me. You must kill Melisandre if you want to stop the Night King. You must bring the dawn." The fires continue to get brighter, and Melisandre's ruby is getting so hot that steam is beginning to rise off of it. Davos says she killed Princess Shireen, and she was going to kill Gilly's son. And Gendry starts yelling, He says Melisandre was going to kill him too. The storm above them is growing larger, and snow is starting to fall into the fires. Kinvara begins chanting to the Lord of Light. She says they will make the great sacrifice that he needs. Bran, Davos, Gendry, and Arya are all telling Jon to kill Melisandre. And finally, Melisandre drops to her knees. When Melisandre's knees hit the ground, Viserion's scream echoes across the battlefield. The Night King is here. Sam walks over to Jon and he pulls out his family's ancestral Valyrian steel sword. Sam says, Melisandre wanted to murder my son. I want you to use my sword. It's called Heartsbane. Plunge this into her evil heart. Hurry, you don't have much time. Without even reacting, Jon grabs the sword and plunges it deep into Melisandre's chest. Smoke begins to roll out of Melisandre's nose and mouth. The ruby on her neck glows so bright that it bursts into a red liquid that completely covers the sword, turning it into the Red Sword of Heroes. When Jon pulls out the sword, it starts to glow red. Everyone begins to run into position. Thousands of men are scrambling to grab their weapons. Daenerys mounts Drogon. Jon pulls out Longclaw and he tosses it to Jorah Mormont without saying a word. Jorah, Jaime, Bronn, the Hound, Arya, Gendry, Beric, Brienne, and all the others have their weapons drawn. They begin to see thousands of blue eyes glowing through the storm. Wolves begin to howl in the distance. It causes Arya to turn her head to see where it was coming from. Jon then mounts Rhaegal with the glowing red sword in his hand. The Night King breaks through the storm, flying faster than anyone has ever seen. Viserion swoops over the Golden Company and torches hundreds of men in one strike. Daenerys and Jon immediately take to the sky. Jon signals for Daenerys to take out his army, while Jon goes after the Night King. The night sky begins to light up with bright colors of blue and red. Thousands are dying with each pass of the dragons. There are 24 White Walkers leading the army. Half of them are armed with ice spears, as are the 2 giants. Jorah, Jaime, Bronn, Beric, the Hound, Arya, Gendry, and Brienne all head for the White Walkers. There will be an epic battle where 7 main characters fight close to 12 White Walkers at the same time. Gendry smashes one right in the face with his warhammer. Arya stabs one in the side of the neck with her dagger. And Jorah kills one while saving Brienne after she fell from her injured leg. Jaime Lannister gets disarmed by one of the White Walkers and his sword falls to the ground. Bronn picks it up and he kills the White Walker for Jaime. Bronn smiles at Jaime, then he tosses him back his sword, and Bronn says, "If you drop the bloody thing again, I will be taking it with me." Every time a White Walker dies, hundreds of whites fall to the ground. The commander of the Golden Company has 1 ballista in the back of the camp. The commander takes a long, sharp piece of dragonglass and fires it at one of the giants. It hits the giant right in the chest, and it falls. He tries hitting Viserion, but he's moving too fast to get a clear shot. At some point during the battle, Jorah Mormont sees a White Walker taking aim at Drogon with an ice spear. Jorah charges at the White Walker and disarms him, but he gets swarmed by the Whites, and Jaime kills the White Walker by shoving his sword into his back. Beric Dondarrion uses himself as his shield as another White Walker tries to kill the Hound. Daenerys burns both of the remaining giants, and she torches thousands of Whites. The whole encampment is now being swarmed by the remaining Whites. It forces the group to fall back. Jon takes aim at Viserion, and Rhaegal lets loose his flame, but it doesn't seem to affect Viserion. One of the White Walkers hits Rhaegal with an ice spear, causing him to spiral out of control. The injury forces Rhaegal to land, and Jon has to continue on foot, with the glowing sword in his hand. Everyone realizes they need to kill Viserion as soon as possible, so the group begins to fall back even further to where the ballista is. They are all taking several shots at him, but keep missing. Finally, Bronn is able to hit Viserion with a shard of dragonglass, but it's not able to penetrate the dragon. He fires again, and again, but the brittle dragonglass isn't piercing Viserion. Then, Arya tosses Bronn her Valyrian steel dagger to use as a projectile. It's small enough to slide down the ballista and fire. Bronn takes aim and launches the dagger. It hits Viserion right in the center of his chest. Viserion lets out a thunderous scream and begins to fall like a rock from the sky. The dragon slams into the ground, and the Night King rolls off of him into the snow. The Night King stands up and pulls a curved ice sword out that was strapped to his back. The Night King looks over at Viserion, and the dragon's eyes are closed. Jon can see Daenerys coming back around on Drogon. He waves his glowing sword in the air and signals to Daenerys to land. Jon wants to challenge the Night King 1 vs 1. Every man in white comes to a standstill on the battlefield, with all of their eyes on Jon and the Night King. They begin to walk to each other, and they never take their eyes off each other. They both walk until there is about 15 feet in between them. The Night King is holding his ice sword, and Jon is holding the Red Sword of Heroes. After a few moments, the battle begins. They are just a few feet away from each other, and they are both moving around trying to size the other one up before they commit and possibly expose themselves. Jon takes a swing at his head, but the Night King moves faster and is more agile than the White Walkers. Jon missed by several feet. The Night King takes a swing at Jon, and Jon almost loses his footing, but he recovers quickly. Jon looks down and he notices the sword cut through his fur and leather. The Night King swings again, and this time he hits his mark. The ice cuts and burns into Jon's arm, causing him to hold the sword with his other hand. Jon grips the handle hard and swings fast like the snap of a whip. The Night King raises his sword to block the shot, but the red sword cuts right through the ice and into the Night King. As the sword comes out the other side, the Night King shatters into thousands of pieces, and his army explodes simultaneously. Wolves in the distance begin to howl, and Jon's red sword is steaming with water dripping off of it. Everyone watching was holding their breath, but they all let out a sigh of relief. The snow stops falling and the clouds above begin to break apart. The red glow of the sword begins to dim. Daenerys begins to feel her baby moving inside of her stomach. Jon walks over, and he embraces Daenerys in front of everyone. Then he embraces his family. As light begins to appear through the clouds, they all start to walk across the battlefield. It's nothing but death and devastation all around them. Jon tells Daenerys they must go to King's Landing next. They talk to the commander of the Golden Company to find out about the city's defenses. The commander tells them about the ballistas and the wildfire placed at each gate. They know they don't have the numbers to breach the gate, and it will be extremely dangerous to fly in with all the ballistas. Jaime and Tyrion say if they can get them inside of the walls, they can get them into the Red Keep. There are several secret ways to enter and exit, so they load up everyone that can be useful for the mission. The final scene will be in King's Landing. Cersei, Euron, and Qyburn are discussing their tactics in case of a surprise attack. Cersei tells Qyburn that if the city is about to fall, he needs to make sure the candles are lit near the wildfire. Cersei has no plans of surrendering or fleeing the city. She intends on blowing everything up if the walls are breached. Qyburn has placed a wildfire under most of the city, but the majority is under the Red Keep. There are hundreds of pots in the lowest levels of the cells. After they discuss their plans, Cersei tells Qyburn to leave them while she has a word with Euron alone. Jon and Daenerys land the dragons a few miles away from the city. They land at dusk, but once it's dark enough, they planned on sending Arya and Jaime ahead first. Arya used to chase cats all over the Red Keep, and she once chased them down to where the dragon skulls are kept, and she got lost trying to find her way out. She followed a storm drain that emptied into the Blackwater Bay, so they're going to take a small boat from a village then head into the bay, and once they are there, Arya and Jaime will enter the storm drain and find their way inside of the Red Keep. Once they are inside, Arya will steal a face from one of the guards, while Jaime looks for Cersei or Euron. Once Arya has a face from a guard, she will then go kill as many people as possible that are manning the ballistas, and hopefully open one of the gates to let the others inside. Jaime and Arya prepare to head for the shoreline to find a small boat. Jaime is stopped by Bronn, and Bronn hands him the small dagger he always keeps tucked behind his back. He tells Jaime he will be in close quarters inside the Red Keep, and it will be much easier to pull a dagger than his sword. Besides, you can't hold on to the damn thing anyhow. They find a small boat soon enough, and they slowly make their way into the bay. And once they hit the shore, they pull the boat onto the rocks, and they enter the storm drain. It takes them about an hour to find their way through the dark, but they find themselves inside of the dungeons of the Red Keep. This is where Arya and Jaime will head their separate ways. Arya slips outside the Red Keep, and it's not long before she kills a guard and wears his face and uniform. She heads straight for the wall where the main defenses are, and Arya is not only light on her feet, but she's also very quick. She crouches down along the top of the wall and begins slitting the throats of everyone posted beside the ballistas. There are roughly a dozen of them spaced out, so she has to take her time to avoid detection. Someone eventually spots one of the dead bodies, and they sound the alarm. This is Jon and Dany's signal that it's time to move to Plan B. Storm the walls with the dragons. Daenerys and Jon want to burn all the ballistas first, then blow out a section of the wall to allow the rest of their men into the city. They both fly right over top of the Red Keep, and begin to torch the top of the wall that protects the inner city. Jaime can hear the chaos erupting outside, so he knows he must act fast. The Lannister men end up getting a few shots off from the ballista, but it's not that easy to hit a moving target at night. Arya, disguised as a guard, kills them too. Jon and Daenerys both torch a portion of the wall, and it eventually crumbles into a pile of rubble. Jon lands and lets the rest of the men inside the blown out hole. Out of an act of desperation, Cersei orders the Mountain outside. He's not to allow anyone inside of the Red Keep. Then Cersei signals for Qyburn to prepare to light the wildfire down in the cells. She is not prepared to let her city fall while she's still alive. Euron leaves to help Qyburn see it through, but in reality he's planning on escaping the city and leaving Cersei to her own demise. Jaime sees the Mountain walking down the stairs, so he hides until he passes, then Jaime climbs the steps. As Jaime goes around the corner, he sees Qyburn and Euron walk out of the room, so Jaime pulls his dagger and he hides right around the corner. The Hound eventually spots his brother outside. The Mountain is walking atop the wall, burning the pots of wildfire stashed at every post. The Hound finds his way up and challenges his brother to 1v1 combat. The Mountain sets down the torch and the fight begins. An epic sword fight will ensue, but the Hound is still no match for his bigger and stronger brother. At some point during the fight, the Hound and the Mountain both lose their swords and begin to fistfight, but the Hound is barely denting his armor. The Hound will eventually smash a pot of wildfire over the Mountain's helmet, which knocks him to the ground. Then he picks up his torch and tosses it on his brother, cooking him inside of his armor. Qyburn and Euron come around the corner and Jaime shoves the dagger into Qyburn's throat, all the way down to the handle. Euron is caught completely off guard, but he manages to grab Jaime and take him to the ground. An intense struggle between the two will last for several minutes, until Jaime manages to knock out Euron's teeth with his golden hand. Then he pulls the dagger from Qyburn's throat and plunges it deep into Euron's chest. Jaime leaves the dagger in his chest, and he begins to walk to Cersei's chambers next. Jaime enters her chambers, and Cersei can't believe her eyes. Jaime was the last person she expected to see. Cersei can see the blood on his hands, and Cersei begins to cry out to Jaime, telling him how much she loves him, and how thankful she is to have him here at this time. She starts to touch her stomach, telling him how she has his child inside of her. And Jaime doesn't say anything at first. He allows Cersei to embrace him, and his eyes begin to fill up with tears. Jaime looks at Cersei, and he tells her that he loves her, and he even gives her a kiss on the forehead, and Cersei begins to cry. Cersei says she knew he would come back and save her, and she leans in to kiss him on the lips. But before their lips can touch, Cersei starts gasping for air. Jaime has both hands on her throat. His left hand is squeezing as tight as he possibly can, while he is applying pressure and pushing down with the golden hand. Cersei falls down to the floor and Jaime moves with her. He is on top of her, still squeezing and pushing. Tears start to roll down his cheek as Cersei struggles for air, until her body finally starts to stop moving. As Cersei's eyes begin to slowly close, the scene will fade to black, and the episode will end with the Rains of Castamere playing in the back. Alright folks, that was Season 8, Episode 5. This was a really big episode with a lot of different things happening, so let me know what you think about this one. Put all your thoughts and questions down below. I'm really anxious to see what you have to say about this episode. I want to thank everyone for stopping by to watch the video, and I really want to give a special shout out to all of my Patreon supporters. The amount of new support I've been getting over the past 10 days or so has been incredible. Thank you all so much. I hope everyone has a great day, and I will see you back here for the finale. Bye.